Hi guys, this is Dr. Sadasivam once again with you. In the earlier video, we had talked a lot about how the brain had evolved in the last millions and millions of years. We have talked a lot about emotional intelligence. We had also talked about intelligent quotient, emotional quotient, and host of other things. We talked about limbic brain, mammalian brain, reptilian brain, and how through the many years of evolution, our brains have been formed with your thinking brain, your emotional brain, neocortex, and host of other things. And in today's video, we will be talking about two concepts. One is the brain being a passion of all emotions, and the secondly, the neural tripwire. Typically, when you talk about the brain, there is something in the brain which is called as amygdala. Amygdala has its origins in Greek, and it is an almond-shaped part which is amygdala, and this is the seat of all emotions within the brain. So in short, it is a cluster of interconnected structures within your brain, and every time you undergo an emotional situation or every time you learn something, you memorize something, these connections get even more stronger, and over a period of time new connections are established. And because of this activity that happens within your brain, more and more interconnections, which makes your brain that much more powerful. So as regards its location, it's perched just above the brainstem, slightly below the limbic ring. These are biological things, and let's not give too much attention, but let's assume somewhere it's near the brainstem. Now you have two parts to it. One is amygdala. Remember this word very well because that's the seat of all emotions. And there is one more which is called as the hippocampus. Now amygdala and hippocampus are two parts of your primitive nose brain. When we say primitive, it's not the current brain, but we are talking about a stage in your evolutionary journey. And the present is not 30, 40 years back. It's hundreds and thousands of years, right? We're talking about evolution, right? Through generations. Now, both of these, your amygdala and hippocampus, they have given rise to your cortex and the neocortex. Remember when we talked about the human brain, we talked about the cortex and the neocortex. Both of them are thinking brains. They all evolved from this. Now, amygdala, as we have talked about, is an emotional center in your human body. It is a storehouse of emotional memory, as simple as that. Just for an example, when somebody is crying, when in tears, where are the tears coming from? It is coming from your eyes. But which is that center in the whole human body, in your brain, which makes the tears? Many people think it is the heart. No. The origin of all this, whether it is tear in grief or tear in happiness, right? Somebody receives a world level achievement. When he receives that, he cries. Son is getting an award. Mother is crying.
जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
It is this amygdala, the emotional center, the storehouse of memory in your brain, which makes the eyes to secrete those tears. Just give you a gist. So probably certain words I will be repeating again and again because this amygdala, hippocampus, the limbic brain, your reptilian brain, these are certain things you would have observed that I'm repeating those words again and again. There is a purpose. We're not biological experts. We're not going to write an examination in biology to exactly know where, what, anatomy. We are not doctors. But at a general level, we need to have some kind of a familiarization with these words, and that is why I am using these words again and again so that it gets reinforced in your memory. This is not important. What is more important is, with the understanding of these words, what are we doing to regulate our own behavior, regulate our actions? That is what is more important rather than understanding the anatomy of each part like amygdala, cortex, neocortex, hippocampus, etc. But a familiarization of these words, will help you know your working of the brain. I will be mentioning these words throughout in this video, guys. We've already studied that the knowledge of these words is not important. What is important is how do we apply the knowledge of these in terms of regulating our everyday behaviors. That is what is more important. We're going to talk about a very important concept, that is neural tripwire. We have fuses in our house, right? So many a times when certain things happen, your fuse blows out. And you also remember that as part of our normal language parlance, colloquial parlance, that when a guy is short-tempered, he is unable to control his anger, we say his fuse is blown off. There is a reason behind that. And here what we are talking about is the fuse getting blown off in your neural circuitry here. Otherwise, the normal fuse goes off in our house because of the domestic wiring circuitry, that's what. But here, how this gets blown off within your own neural circuitry here. Because neural circuitry is also a storehouse of election connections, neurochemical reactions. It's got a current inside. In fact, I've come out with a video about power of thoughts. That was by Bruce Lipton, a great researcher. We talked a lot about how your thoughts, what happens when you think, that's totally a different subject. I've already come out with a video on that, and we will be providing the link of that video in this description column. Please watch that too. Now, talking about this neural tripwire, let me give you an introduction to that. Many a times when people lose their emotional balance, what typically happens? They lose their emotional balance because something in your neural circuitry got tripped off. That's what we are talking about. We're talking about neural tripwire. Just to decomplicate the whole thing, we're going to give you a small example. Let us assume that a boy is in love with a girl who is an English teacher. The boy writes one page full of love letter to that girl who is an English teacher. Now the girl goes through that letter and she points out 16 spelling and grammar mistakes, and she starts explaining what those mistakes are and some of those spelling mistakes. You know what's happening here? Here, the big picture is not being seen. The girl was into small micro things, which means the thinking brain was working as far as the whole incident is concerned. The girl was too focused on the thinking brain, which means the neocortex was doing the job all the time, whereas the amygdala, what we were talking about, which is the center of emotions, that wasn't at work at all. And many a times it happens subconsciously without our knowledge. We interact with people on a day-on-day basis. Every day we come across such kind of people in our lives. So this is a small example which clearly explains what is an emotional mind and what is a rational mind, guys. And many a times what happens is whenever somebody is encountered with an emergency situation, the amygdala is the first one to receive the signals through various sensory organs. When we talk about sense organs, we are talking about look, touch, feel, and host of things like your eye, tongue, your skin. All these are sensory organs, and I don't want to elaborate, go deep more into that. So immediately the signals from the senses, they allow the amygdala to scan all the experiences, everything around. And this amygdala reacts instantly like a neural tripwire. In moments of distress or moments of emergency, the amygdala sends a telegraph message. It's a message of crisis to all parts of the brain. We've already discussed there are certain physical parts of the brain, cerebellum, medulla oblongata, which are all physical parts of the brain. Like in a car, you have an engine, you have a brake, cylinder, tire, pistons. They are all physical parts of the car. You have physical parts of the brain. The thinking part is what we are talking about, your limbic systems, your limbic brain, your amygdala, your hippocampus, your cortex, neocortex. These are the ones which does the job. Now when this telegraph is sent and when an alarm is sounded, it immediately starts recruited. It sends a message of crisis to all the parts of the brain, and it immediately starts recruiting the cells around the brain to its urgent agenda. Which is doing this? Amygdala, which is the center, emotional center. It recruits all the cells around to its urgent agenda. Your thinking brain, your cortex, your neocortex, they become powerless. Your thinking brain becomes powerless and your emotional brain becomes powerful because of an emergency situation proclaimed. And then what happens? It immediately secretes certain enzymes, secretion of flight or fight hormones. Remember in the earlier videos, whenever people are encountered with a situation of anger, the blood flows to your hands. Your hands get strengthened in the process. Your hands will get enormous strength during that spur of the moment. And when your hands are strong, immediately it will grab. It will beat, it might grab a stick, it might grab a stone, it might grab a brick, and it will react that way. Your hands become powerful. But in certain situations, a flight kind of a situation, when you think the opponent is very strong, the blood flows to your legs. Your legs become stronger. And when your legs become stronger, you are able to run at double the speed, double your normal speed, guys. When chased by a dog, a man is able to run twice faster as he normally runs. Where does he get that strength from? Because your mind is a very, very powerful and potent weapon. Your mind can do wonders, guys. But what limits the power of your mind many a times is your own thoughts. So when a dog is chasing the guy is able to run at twice the speed. He's able to scale a 6 feet wall in the process. But in a normal situation, if you ask him to run, he's unable to run in that speed because he has the potential, but he's somehow unable to run at that speed. He's unable to realize his complete potential. And this is what is discussed by management experts. We've talked about Johari windows. The guy is hidden potential, but he is unable to realize his own potential. So you need a guru to realize his potential, train him in that manner, and then lead him to certain accomplishments in life. That's what typically we have talked about. And typically, if you look at the annals of history, we have hundreds and hundreds of gurus. Guru Dronacharya, making Arjuna in one of the greatest warriors, right? And even the great Chanakya, when he identified a street boy, Chandragupta Maurya, he realizes, sees that potential, takes him in his fold, trains him, and over a period of time, he transforms Chandragupta into a great warrior king because he realized the potential of that guy. This is what Johari window explains. Many times people don't explain their own strengths. I'm coming up with another video on Johari window. That's a management subject, MBA subject. I will be coming out, so you can go through that video also. So this is what we are talking about. Your mind has unlimited potential. Now coming back to the subject, whom would you like to be powerful? The decision rests with whom? I'm talking about the brain. The decision rests with you. Whether you want your thinking brain to be powerful or your emotional brain to be powerful. Amygdala in this case. Many a times what happens is in that crucial moment of emergency, there are certain physical things that happen in your mind. Those cannot be controlled because they're natural. They're endowed by nature. You cannot stop that. You can only regulate it. Something like it will speed up your heart rate, it will mobilize your cardiovascular systems, it will raise your blood pressure, and many a times your breathing also gets slowed, guys. These are some of the physical things that happen. So what typically happens? Who orchestrates all these things? All these are orchestrated by your amygdala. Remember, we were talking about that almond shaped thing right below the brain stem. That's what we are talking about it. Guys, I think you liked this video. We talked about a lot of concepts at the cost of repeating it so many times. Let me reinforce that we will not get into the biological aspects of each of these things but a knowledge of certain things are necessary. For example, your limbic brain, your amygdala, your hippocampus, your cortex, neocortex. Just an understanding, some familiarization of these words is more than enough. Limbic system. And a little bit of extra details is your amygdala is the emotional center of your brain. Your hippocampus is rational. Your neocortex is a rational thinking part, but your limbic system is more emotional. It works on emotions, and many a times throughout all these years we have been seeing that human beings are designed to make the emotional brain more powerful. Generally, the emotional brain overtakes the thinking brain. Generally, they become more powerful. But emotional, stable people, what they do is they regulate it as much as possible through a conscious process. Through a conscious process, they try to take certain power from the emotions and give it to the thinking brain. Most of these things happen instantaneously at the spur of the moment, and after that it's nothing but remorse and remorse if not controlled and regulated properly. Typically, in short, we can say the amygdala, which is the emotional brain, it overpowers the neocortex in moments of hasty actions that we later regret, and this regret will not happen if we are aware of these two minds and if we are regulating it properly. And one important caveat I give in all my videos: you don't become emotionally stable by looking at one video. It's a long process. It may continue over decades, many years, 20 years, 30 years. So it's a question of everyday practice, how we control our minds and become emotionally stable day after day, week after day, month after month, year of. We go through the journey of emotional stability, and nobody in the world can say from today onwards I will be emotionally stable. So this is a continuum going from emotional instability on a scale of 0 and emotional stability on a scale of 10, and most of us, I guess, we are all in the scale of 3 or 4, and for us to reach from 4 to 8 it may take decades, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, guys. Okay guys, I hope you liked this presentation, and in the next video we will be coming up with two important subjects. One is the emotional sentinel, and secondly we're going to talk about emotional memory in our next video, and after that there will be one more video which will talk about neural alarms, and then we will talk about emotions management. Of course, that is also one subject which we will be covering, which will complete this part. Okay guys, okay, this is Dr. Sadasivam signing off till we meet again. Bye bye. Jai Hind.